You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome into the Toronto Sports Rush right here on the Bet Rivers Network. It is Monday, so it means it's Mondays with McGuire. Pierre McGuire joins me today. Pierre, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the rest of the National Hockey League getting ready to start the season. It kicks off for the league on Tuesday. Leafs will play on Wednesday. Exciting time. I mean, for you, you coached, you've been involved in media for a long, long time now. You've been at many of these opening night games, these banner-raising type games. What's the opening of the season mean to you?
Everything. It's the most important time of the year. The only other important times of the year really are the day Stanley Cup is awarded and the NHL draft. Opening night is massive for the league. It's a celebration of all the hard work that the players have put in, all the marketing staffs and what they did in the offseason to try to fill the building, the pregame presentations, the pomp, the circumstance. I think opening night is like Christmas. I really do. With all due respect to everybody else, it's just a phenomenal thing. Some teams know they're not going to be particularly good, but opening night gives them an opportunity because of the emotion. Some teams know they're going to be really good, but they don't want to fail on opening night. So the drama is really palpable around the league. Opening night to me means so much.
Yeah, it is the beginning of a long journey, and for one team, it's the beginning of a journey to realize a lifelong dream. And down in Florida, it's the beginning of a journey to try to win a third straight Stanley Cup. So it's going to be a fascinating journey as it always is. As pertains to the Toronto Maple Leafs, how do you feel about the Leafs as we sit here on just about the eve of the regular season for them as well?
Very optimistic. I was optimistic about them last year. They finished first in the division, and they basically were a couple games away from knocking Florida out. They really were. Obviously, they didn't play well in Game 5 in Toronto. They didn't play well in Game 7 in Toronto. And obviously, losing their goaltender, Anthony Stolarz, I think, set them back. But I'm very optimistic about this team. The biggest reason why, there's organizational depth in defense. The fact they had to put Henry Thrun on waivers tells me Philip Myers beat him out. And so that's depth. If Philip Myers is your seventh defenseman, that's a pretty good player in 7. They've got the one injury to Scott Laughton, which I think is a bit of a problem for them. But I love the fact that they're going to have Easton Cowan on the team to start the year, and I think that's going to be a shrewd move that will eventually pay off. I love the fact that they acquired Dakota Joshua in the offseason. And I really think once they figure out who belongs on the right side with Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes, once they figure that out, whether it's Max Domi, whether it's Mateus Michelli, maybe it's Willie Nylander, we don't know. Once they figure that part of the puzzle out, I think they're going to be a real good team.
You know, when you mentioned that hole on the right side, you talk about maybe it's William Nylander, right? And let's face it, it could be, and it could just be in different situations, right? It could be William Nylander for small portions of the game, depending upon how things go, maybe larger portions. Do you think, because I would feel like they would not want it to be William Nylander to kind of spread out their offense. But how do you feel about it?
No, I wouldn't want Willie there either. But if you don't get any results, then you probably have to think about it because you need Matthews going and you need Nyes going. If you're going to overcome the loss of 102 points from a pretty special player, Mitchell Marner, you need those two guys going in particular. And so the right side is going to be important. The one thing I'd say is, not enough talk about Bobby McMann, and I think Bobby McMann going on a line with Tavares and Nylander is going to create matchup problems for the opposition, especially if Bobby plays that robust, fast, big, physical forecheck game that I saw him play when he was a kid in the Alberta Junior League or when he played at Colgate University. If he can get back to that with consistency, that makes a big difference for their team as well.
Yeah, it's always learning, how you fit best at that level, right? Some guys play very, very well. They're goal scorers at lower levels. You get to the National Hockey League level, you got to figure out what makes sense. I think, Nick Robertson has kind of gone through that pain of trying to figure it out. And, he talked about the other day of being desperate getting into the lineup in a preseason game. So I think when guys get to that stage, it can be very helpful for them to kind of find clarity in terms of what will be smart for them to be successful in the league.
I love the way you said that. It's so smart. It's really good, too. And it's very appropriate, especially when you consider Nick Robertson. I don't know if he was always a favorite of the new coaching staff in
Yeah.
particular. But I think he's playing his way into their hearts. Now, again, we talk about the Lawton injury. If Scott Lawton's not hurt, potentially Nick Robertson's not a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs anymore.
Yeah.
But he is hurt, and he's probably out for a couple of weeks. We'll see how long it actually is. But Lawton was playing fantastic hockey. And EJ, the Florida model really works, especially with depth down the middle. So if you think about what Toronto had with Austin Matthews and John Tavares and Nick Roy, and then Scott Lawton in the four-hole, you're really good. Like you're Florida-esque, especially with Florida not having, Sasha Barkov. That makes a big difference. So if you're Florida, you're kind of excited about that. Or sorry, if you're Toronto, you're excited about that. But now, without Scott Lawton for a little while, it's going to be a real test to see, can Easton Cowan play in the four-hole as a centerman? What do they do with certain situations with their depth players? Because I think one of the reasons why Toronto's going to be good is because of their overall depth, especially down the middle.
Let me ask you about Easton Cowan and your thoughts on him. I mean, he's just 20 years of age. He was the 28th overall pick in the 2023 draft. He's been playing with the London Knights, which is like, I guess, the Harvard of junior hockey, right? With the Hunters there, and they've had a lot of success, Memorial Cups, and he's played very, very well in the playoffs. 39 points in 17 playoff games last year. Obviously, when you draft a guy in the first round and he has this kind of pedigree, you're expecting him to be a good player for your team. He is just 20, though. What do you expect from Easton Cowan this year? What would be a successful season in your mind from Easton Cowan?
If he could play 60 or more games, I think that'd be great. So on the games played, the Mendoza line for me would probably be around 60. If he could get anywhere from 30 to 45 points, I think that'd be a fantastic, because he's going to play deeper in the lineup. I don't know what Coach Berube has planned for him on the power play. If they give him, supplemental power play minutes, then potentially his numbers go up. But if he can do something like that, numbers-wise, anywhere from 30 to 45 points, that'd be substantial for a first-line player who's probably playing in a depth role. He's really talented. I've been watching the player for a long time. It's one thing to scout on the internet, and it's another thing to actually really scout. And so this is a really good player, dynamic player. And the Leafs have had success with London Knight players. Marner's a good example. I know people are going to say, "Oh, Marner never won for us." He wasn't by himself. He had a lot of help.
No, he's a terrific, terrific player. I mean, there's a reason he's getting paid the money he's getting paid in Vegas. It's not because he's no good. Quickly with Cowan, what are his strengths? What do you think his strengths are, and maybe what is a weakness? Is weakness just inexperience and still growing into his body, so to speak, at age 20?
No, I don't think so, actually, with him. One of the things that happens when you said it so well before about the Hunters, it's like going to Harvard University for hockey. Mark and Dale both understand, and even Dylan, who's there on the staff as well, they understand what it takes to be a pro hockey player. And so I think the biggest thing for him, he's really good managing the puck. He's really good creating offense. He's good off the cycle. It's about learning how to play in your own zone, number one, especially against bigger, faster, stronger guys. But two, not overhandling the puck in key situations. Because in junior, he could get away with some of that. I don't know if he won't be able to get away with that. So that's, and all young players. The only guy I can tell you that I had that was young, you never had to worry about that with, was Jaromir Jagr. Okay? But EJ, he was so big.
He's so big.
So strong. And he'd have played against so many men for so long. People forget, some of the line. Like, can you imagine a world junior line of Bobby Holik, Robert Reichel, and Jaromir Jagr? And that same world junior, the Russians had Mogilny, Fedorov, and Bure.
Yeah. Some pretty good players.
So you're growing up playing against these guys all the time.
Yeah.
You're getting a baptism early on. So Jaromir, we never had a problem with that. Other young guys, you have problems with them.
Yeah, well, Jaromir just can kind of just turn and stick that big derriere out and be in the way and keep the puck away from guys. Very few have those, let's just say, those physical attributes to make that happen. But you're so right. It's just learning to just move pucks even more quickly as the speed of the game picks up. Got a chance to watch Penn State over the weekend and Gavin McKenna making his debut. And one of my colleagues was saying, "Boy, the game doesn't look as fast as the NHL." I'm like, "Well, it isn't. that's the difference between the NHL and, the other levels, college and juniors. So that'll be the key I think one of the keys for Cowan is just to be able to get up to the pace of what they're doing at the NHL level, because if you don't, you end up hurting yourself and hurting your team with turnovers in tough situations.
And you got to remember, too, the role's different for him. He's not a go-to guy offensively, so he's going to be more in a checking or a depth role. So those players, you're not turning pucks over. You're getting pucks in deep and letting your line mates go forecheck. You don't want to be playing a lot of defense. You'd rather be playing some offense. It's interesting. You talked about the Penn State-Arizona State game.
Yeah.
Watched a lot of it, too. I watched Boston College and Quinnipiac. I watched Providence and Quinnipiac. I watched UMass and Northern Michigan. I watched a lot of games this weekend. And the one thing that stood out is more than not, the goalies for all these teams so far this season have a distinct advantage. And I wasn't sure how it was going to play out in college hockey because of all the CHL players with these really gaudy numbers coming down and playing college hockey. And then all of a sudden you see all those gaudy numbers kind of went away. I think part of it's because of what you were talking about, more mature guys, a little bigger, a little stronger, a little faster. But I think the goaltending the first weekend of the college season is pretty special. Northern Michigan, they got outshot 70-24 on Friday night. Their goalie made 36 saves in the first period against UMass. I was watching. I was like, what the heck is going on?
That's called keeping you in the game, is what I guess it's called. Hanging on for dear life is another thing it could be called. But it's good to see, it's good as hockey is ramping up. I mean, it's interesting to watch. And, while we're talking about McKenna, I'll ask you quick, what did you think? I mean, he certainly put points on the board. He had his first collegiate goal in game number 2. He had really 2 nice assists in the first period of game 1. What were your thoughts on Gavin McKenna, who will almost just certainly be the first pick in the draft coming up next June?
Loved his energy, loved his passion. Didn't think he was intimidated by the theater. I've actually been to games in that building. It's a tough place for the visitors to play. And so I thought he handled himself well. That's a tough trip for your first weekend of play in college hockey. It's really tough. It's a more mature team they have out in Arizona. So I thought he handled himself well. Definitely didn't disappoint. I know people are saying, he didn't do that much. Here's what I tell everybody. I watched Brian Leach play college hockey.
Yeah.
I watched Paul Kariya play college hockey. I watched Keith Tkachuk play college hockey. Sean McEachran, Tony Amante. So all these great players that had unbelievable NHL careers.
Yeah.
Brady Tkachuk had 8 goals. Brady Tkachuk had 8 goals his freshman year playing with Jordan Greenway. His next year in the NHL, he had 23.
Yeah.
He had 8 goals as a first-year player in college. And in rookie year in the NHL on a non-playoff team in Ottawa, he had 23. That shows you how hard it is. I don't think McKenna's going to have nearly the gaudy points that everybody thinks. Macklin Celebrini, by the way, was a beneficiary his freshman year of playing with a guy named Lane Hudson.
Yeah.
And I was at BU a lot watching them practice and watching them play. And that power play with Lane running the top of it and Macklin being on the right side as a left-hand shot for a one-timer, EJ, that was cuckoo crazy. That was lethal stuff. So I don't know if Gavin, I know they don't. They don't have anybody like Lane Hudson at Penn State. So that's a bit of a difference.
Not very many people.
Nope.
Have guys like Lane Hudson, and even his younger brother Cole has been.
Cole might be.
It's kind of crazy to think when you watch them. It's like I've asked a couple of people at BU. It's just like, okay, you guys got to see Lane, you're seeing Cole. I said, what's the difference? And the difference are subtle. They said Cole might be a little meaner, and but he goes, but every bit as elusive and interesting to watch. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy. A couple of years ago, I remember people thinking, that poor Lane Hudson, too small. The place. I remember he was going to the draft with like medical documents from doctors saying he had growth room still. He could still had room to grow because people were worried about his size. Yeah. I don't know if they're worried about it anymore.
No, I don't think so. It's going to be interesting to see what his contract is, especially after the signings last week. With all due respect to the guys that signed last week, and, I don't take money away from anybody. These guys work hard to get to where they are. Lane Hudson's looking at a substantial payday on a league max. I would be shocked if he wasn't signed very, very soon by Montreal.
Yeah, you're referring, I guess, to Jack Hughes, or excuse me, to Luke Hughes signing that deal. $9 million per as the Devils get that done. Let's
Don't
go back.
forget Jackson Lacombe, too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Who got a big deal. What did you think of that one?
Well, that's based on analytics. That's an analytic contract. Luke Hughes is more of an eye test. I think Jackson Lacombe is more of an analytic contract. Here's the one thing I'd say. So when Jackson Lacombe was playing at Minnesota, it was very apparent that he and Brock Faber, I was there a lot. He and Brock, because they had a player by the name of Ben Myers who had a chance to be an unrestricted free agent coming out of college.
Remember that?
I was working in Ottawa, so I spent a lot of time out at New Mariucci in Minnesota and watching. And Jackson was really good. He was really good, but he wasn't as good as Brock Faber. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when he got to the NHL, there was more of a development process with him. I think they've done a really good job with him, but his numbers are really gaudy, analytic numbers. I think he might have got paid a little too much, but it's still not a terrible contract.
Okay.
But no, it's fair. He's a good player.
Yeah.
I think, everybody's kind of looking at all the same teams in the West. This is one thing to deviate from Toronto. Anaheim, don't go to sleep on them.
Yeah.
They could be really dangerous. If people sleep on them this year, they could be dangerous.
Yeah.
The Quenneville factor is going to be huge there.
Yeah,
it's going to make a big difference.
It's been bubbling there for a couple of years with all those draft picks and really talented young players, and we'll see if it all kind of comes together this year. I mean, even last year with Greg Croner behind the bench, I think they got a 21 or 22 point improvement year over year, which is really significant. Usually you don't get moved out when your team improves by that many points. But let's face it, Joel Quenneville doesn't come on the market all the time. So, Pat Verbeek decided to turn back and bring in his old teammate there from Hartford. We'll see how things go out west. Back to the Leafs now. Let me ask you about the goaltending situation, because Joseph Woll is away from the team. They brought in James Reimer and, as kind of a veteran guy on a PTO to be around. And I think we talked about it last week. I think it's a pretty smart move. They have Dennis Hildeby, will be probably in that number 2 role, at least in the short term. I mean, it seems like kind of almost like last year, like one guy was there, then they get them both together, then one guy drops out again, either with injury or issue. It would be nice to have these two guys go throughout the whole season together, kind of side by side. Are you concerned at all that we're starting again this pattern of Stolarz is here now and Woll is away from the team, and you'd like to see them together?
Yeah, no question. I agree. They were a dynamic duo last year. They were really good when they were both healthy. It's going to. I don't think Hildeby's going to be there for long.
Yeah.
If anything, I think Reimer will go in and plug until Joe Woll is able to come. I was watching what other teams were doing. Carolina put Caden Primo on waivers, and then they pick up Brandon Bussey, who was playing for Providence last year in the American League. So I thought that was really interesting. Michael DiPietro is another name that was on waivers, and I thought maybe a team like Edmonton or maybe even Toronto might pick him up. Still haven't seen that one way or the other as we tape the show right now. But I still think the waiver wire is going to be an interesting thing to watch if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan in terms of the goaltending position. Because I do think there's some value. Like Brandon Bussey was a really good goalie at Western Michigan. I watched him a lot. And he had some good numbers in the American League. And, Caden Primo last year when he played in Laval was phenomenal.
Yeah.
He wasn't as good in the NHL, but he was great in Laval. And, we'll see how it plays out with Michael DiPietro. But I can tell you one thing. Michael DiPietro last year was as good as any goalie that was playing at any level in pro hockey last year.
You know what's interesting, Pierre, as you mentioned these guys, and we've heard some of these names before, and like fans who've been really following it closely would know these names. It's that line of guys who are good at the American League, but just never kind of can break through. Like Caden Primo is still a young guy.
Yeah.
He's played some in the NHL. He's been in some situations in Montreal when they weren't quite as good. They've been better now, but they just can't find their way. He's just one example of that. But you mentioned a couple other guys that have been really good goalies at just underneath the NHL level, but haven't been able to break through.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's just that little. It's amazing. It's whether you're off the angle a little bit, whether the shot just beats you because the release point's a little bit quicker, whether you can't fight through traffic as well at the pro level, the NHL level, as you did at the college level. It is an interesting thing to have to deal with as a scout or a manager or even as a coaching staff.
Yeah.
The one thing I'd say is there's a guy that I don't think can miss, and that's Jacob Fowler for the Montreal Canadiens, who's playing in Laval right now. And He's really special. I watch
A
him so
big
much.
kid.
Oh, he's big. He's athletic. He's calm, cool, and collected. The last player I saw at that position that he reminds me of is Marty Brodeur. I saw Brodeur when he was 16 years old for Montreal Bourassa. It was a midget AAA team before he went to St. Hyacinthe. We tried to recruit him at St. Lawrence. We came really close to getting him. He could tell you that. And but when he was a pick of St. Hyacinthe, he decided to stay in the Quebec Major Junior League. And the one thing that really stood out about Marty was calm, cool, and collected.
Mm-hmm.
Fowler's the same thing. He's an unflappable player, and that's going to help his development. And I, again, you talked about it so appropriately. How come some of these guys have gaudy numbers and they can't get it done in the NHL? I think part of it is they get rattled.
Yeah,
they get rattled. They're not the same player because they get rattled. I don't think that'll happen to this kid.
Let me ask you quick about the start of the season for the Leafs. I mean, what do you make of the schedule in these first couple of weeks?
It's a challenge, but I like, again, I know we're in Toronto, but I say this on all my other shows that I do all across the National Hockey League. I think Toronto's a really good team. I think Brad Treliving identified the need for grit, toughness, and organizational depth. They've done that. And to me, the biggest thing, they can go on the road and they can slug it out. And I don't mean fighting, but they can go body for body. Mm-hmm. And I think if Austin Matthews is healthy, and in an Olympic year, Matthews wants to have a good start. Yeah. Tavares wants to have a good start. Nyes wants to have a good start. Ekman-Larsson wants to have a good start. Mm-hmm. You start looking at all these guys with the potential to make Nylander, all these guys that might be playing Olympics, they want to get off to good starts.
Yeah.
And I think that also plays into the the Toronto Maple Leafs and their ability to play.
Yeah, hey, who knows? I mean, I know it's a loaded group of goalies in the U.S., but maybe Anthony Stolarz wants to get off to a good start.
How do you know
he has played. He has
Yeah.
had great numbers in terms of his save percentage over the last couple of years. I mean, as good as anybody, 925, 926 over the last 2 years. Now, he hasn't played huge numbers of games, but still, he's been very good.
I totally could not agree more.
What's the one thing as we start this season for the Leafs that you're worried about? Is there one thing that you talked about the right side? I mean, but is there one thing big picture that you're worried about?
I am a little bit on the power play. Marner was a huge presence on that power play. Last year they played 5 forwards, good portions of the season with Mitch on the back end with the 5 forwards. And the power play was obviously an important part of their game. Yeah. I don't know if Morgan can do that or not. If Morgan Riley can go back there and play as a number one guy in the power play, that's great. If he can't, I don't know who actually goes into that position. And, I don't think it's Oliver Ekman-Larsson. It's definitely not McCabe. It's not Tanev. It's not Carlo. It's not Benoit. So that's my concern. Who's going to be the guy that runs that power play? You can run it all through Austin if you want, which is what Washington did for years with Backstrom. But it's different. It's just different. Marner was a huge, and it's not because he took up a lot of air in the room. It's because he was a critically important player in special team situations.
Great playmaker. I mean,
phenomenal.
Really saw the ice.
He made everybody. So that's my only. If I were to say one pet peeve of their roster, who's going to run the power play?
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting this year, right, Pierre? Because there's been so much discussion about Marner over the years, and now he's gone. And we've talked about it all summer, right? What's the reaction going to be when he comes back? But wash all that away.
Yeah.
This guy was didn't always work out in the postseason. No, there's very few perfect players in any of the sports we watch, right? But he was an excellent player and really good in certain areas. And I can recall late in games, 6-on-5 situations, power play situations. His ability to see the ice and make plays quickly is one of those skills that is really hard to replace. So it will be one of those things to keep an eye on this year as the Leafs move forward with kind of a different look team. You don't replace someone like Marner. It's just they're going to have to play a little bit differently. It will be something that we'll see if fans start to have a little, remorse maybe about missing the things that he did well instead of always focusing on some of the things that didn't work out.
Yeah, I think if they have playoff success, nobody's worried about the warts in his game. It's the lack of playoff success for the entire group that I think frustrated the fan base more than anything else.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, It's only a matter of hours now, Pierre. We're getting ready for the NHL, the start of the season. We're back again. It's amazing that we go through this cycle. It was a quiet summer, but we are back again. Tuesday is the official NHL opening of the season with the 3 games. The Leafs open on Wednesday, and Pierre will be here all year long. Yep. Keep an eye on it.
I can't wait. I love doing this. Thanks, EJ.
All right. The great Pierre McGuire with us today here on the Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.